Hello, I'm Henrik, and you're listening to REKT.
Hello and welcome to REKT Podcast. I am your host, Chamber. I am unfortunately missing my cohort today, Bunshu. He is unfortunately having some technical difficulties in his travels, so he will not be joining us today. But I am pleased to have Henrik Jelta from Chromia. Henrik, how are you today?
I'm great.
Did I pronounce the last name properly?
That was really good.
Close enough for North American?
Yeah.
All right.
So if you didn't notice, it's a Swedish name.
It is a Swedish name.
Stockholm, so, yeah.
That's How are things in Stockholm today? Is the weather
It's sunny.
nice?
It's really nice. It's like prolonging of our summer.
That's good. We are starting to feel the end of the summer here in North America. The nights have been getting cooler. The sun has been going down much faster, and I'm not liking it. I'm a big fan of summer. It gets nice and warm where I live, and it also gets nice and cold where I live, so I'm not looking forward to the cold. I guess we'd have... I live in Canada, in the southern part of Canada. I think our weather would be pretty similar. It gets fairly cold in Sweden, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in January,
I just
February,
go by...
Yes.
The reason...
December. Yeah.
The reason I know this is I just go by. Obviously, in Canada. We watch a lot of hockey, and I know who our competitors are on a kind of international basis. I know Sweden's always in the mix. I know Russia's always in the mix. So I just assume those are cold places to live. So yeah, no. Are you? Were you a big hockey fan at all growing up?
No, not that really. We have another winter sport actually called bandy with curved sticks, something as well on ice.
Oh,
so
really?
It's like something played in Finland, Sweden, Russia.
Interesting.
So yeah, I was more into that actually.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, so you are... What is your exact title within the Chromia project?
I'm the Chief Executive Officer, right? CEO. So
CEO.
we started off, So we started off with a company, ChromaWay, and then we came up with a Chromia ID. So yeah.
Now, maybe we get into that a little bit because I know when I was researching the project, there was ChromaWay and now there's Chromia. ChromaWay is at the parent company, and then Chromia is kind of built from there. Is that how that works?
Yeah, but it will be more of a project than a company, but we will have like.
So ChromaWay would be the company, and then the project would be Chromia. Is that what we're saying?
We actually have a company that is owning the tokens and investing into the project, but eventually it will be an independent project that will run on its own, not controlled by our organization.
Oh, perfect.
But maybe we'll keep a company to do consulting on the platform, etc.
I see.
Support services.
Well, that makes sense. Now, can you give us a little bit of a kind of a high-level explanation of what Chromia is doing?
Yeah, so, I mean, first we have a long history here. Our CTO made the first token protocol ever in 2012. You could suddenly use...
In 2012?
Yeah. You could,
that is a long time.
Before that, you had Bitcoin as a currency.
Yes.
But now with his Colored Coins project that he was leading, you can issue tokens, like you could have shares on the Bitcoin network or tokens representing art or whatever.
Right.
So that became inspiration to a lot of projects. For example, Ethereum. Vitalik was even in our open source project before he came up with Ethereum.
So you worked with Vitalik in the past?
Yes, we did.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was a kind of a short period before he was frustrated with the arguments and decided to do his own thing. But we went into more doing a company rather than the open source project, and did a lot of work in enterprise tech. But now we're sort of back into the public blockchains with this idea. And the core of the idea is that we want to make a very easy to use yet powerful environment to create decentralized applications.
And is that where power to the public comes from?
Yeah, that is the vision that we can have applications that are controlled by the general public, the users, etc. For example, in social networks, we want to have this argument around Twitter and Facebook and Google controlling everything. Whereas we as users are mainly users and don't have much of a say. So that's kind of the vision around the decentralized applications. That's what we're talking about.
I am pleased to announce we have been joined also by another head of the Chromia project, Alex Mizrahi. Alex, how are you today?
I am fine.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. So we were just talking about the weather in Sweden and alternate forms of hockey that is played in some of our Scandinavian countries. So we're still early in the conversation. I was talking to Henrik about the addition of some kind of higher profile people within the ChromaWay and the Chromia space, and just the fact that the team for Chromia has been around for so long. Obviously, a little bit of time with Vitalik. But what I was about to ask is, you also have some connections with Charlie Lee and Vinnie Lingham. Is that correct?
Yes. With Charlie Lee, we actually did a research project together on like academic research on cryptocurrencies. And then he became an advisor for ChromaWay, and we met. I mean, not me personally. I was mostly talking with him over emails and such. And we also had basically a lot of interaction with Vinnie Lingham as well when we were founding ChromaWay.
Yeah, I met both of them, played poker with Charlie Lee, me and Or, and met Vinnie several times.
That's interesting. So, did you? Who came out the victor in the poker games?
Or maybe I didn't play, but actually my co-founders played. So, but I don't remember who won. We had a fourth co-founder at the time that was really intelligent, Ido, that was really good at this stuff as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not a very good poker player myself. So people usually take my money. So I do have a question, because I keep seeing the term post-chain when it comes to Chromia. What exactly does that mean when you use the term post-chain?
So we build basically when I approach software projects, I like to generalize and not solve just one specific problem, but make some framework for solving like whole class of problems. So that's basically post-chain is our blockchain framework. It's kind of designed to be very flexible, probably more flexible than your average blockchain project by far. And it can work in many different situations. So Chromia is it's based on post-chain. Chromia uses post-chain, some very specific configuration, which is specific for Chromia. But you can also use post-chain as enterprise blockchain, or in any other way. For example, could also work maybe as a combination of private and public network, or maybe for some research project we plan to make it even more flexible in future. So people will be able to build very new things, maybe new type of consensus or new type of transaction processing using post-chain. And also one of important features that it stores data in a relational database. So basically that's what post-chain does. It combines blockchain and the relational database, and Chromia uses it as main components essentially.
That's interesting. So with with blockchain, with a lot of projects, not necessarily just crypto blockchain projects, they typically say you can build something fast, secure, or cheap. You get to pick two out of those three. Does Chromia fit into that as well, or do we have all three of those bases covered?
Well, I believe that in theory you can basically, if you follow some template, then you can actually get all three, because it doesn't have to be very expensive when you not doing something very complex. And we try with our stuff, we try to take as much complexity as possible away. So we handle things automatically, we provide some configuration templates and so on. So it can be done much faster than basically on other blockchains, other frameworks. And we hope we still like not 100% sure. It's not like it have been used in various situations for 10 years. We cannot really say that we know for sure it will be secure. But basically with this kind of high-level templates and so on, and high-level language, it's probably going to be much more secure than your average project. And so it's actually, I believe it's actually possible to build new projects basically on very tight budget and make them work great.
If there is something that is proven to work in computer science and the real world, it is databases, relational databases, or SQL databases, if you're accustomed with that term. I mean, it's based on mathematics from the 70s, implementations from the late 70s. Oracle, a large company, is built around that idea. We have implementation from IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, open source implementation, MariaDB, MySQL, Postgres, etc. It's been used in production for 30 years. I would say that every enterprise across the world has quite a lot of relational databases. It's basically a de facto standard for storing, structuring, managing data, and make sure that you have correct data. So it's basically a best practice.
And at the end of the day, is that what Chromia is looking to be? Is that relational data kind of project?
I mean, it's the core. We are the only product that has that at the core thinking. It's not only a database; it's also a general purpose language, but you get all that power and basically proven track record. But we do some improvements as well to the normal language of creating database applications like SQL. I guess that Alex can talk more about those technical details. But from a business perspective, you're an entrepreneur. If you wanted to start Facebook, like happened, you hacked together something with PHP and MySQL. That's basically the de facto standard for making a social network. If you want to do an enterprise application like SAP, what's behind it? Yeah, SQL. That's basically, it's unthinkable to have a large system that is only in Java and storing information in either files or even in NoSQL databases. Basically, it's so common that you don't even notice it.
Exactly, and I think that's a key point, is when something becomes so common and so mass used across the masses that it becomes unnoticeable.
Yeah.
So I guess that seems to kind of follows up my next question here. Is why somebody would choose to build on Chromia instead of Ethereum or EOS or any of these other dapps projects that are out there. And it sounds like maybe that's one of the major points.
It's I think it's much easier to model if you have any non-trivial data relationship between, like you can model a relationship between different objects or records and things like that, and you want to query index that. So it's much easier to do something like that on Chromia than on Ethereum or EOS. So any project using this non-trivial amount of data, at least some complexity, they can benefit a lot from using Chromia. And also it's just a different business model. Chromia doesn't charge you per byte processed or anything like that. It's basically we want it to scale much more and make resources much available basically at market rate. Basically it's quite complex and rather ambitious, like how we do that. That requires some new stuff on consensus layer and some assumptions about how computation is done and so on. But the idea is that we can provide these resources much cheaper and make them abundant, and also resources themselves, we can query database right away and get this data. So basically people can do much bigger applications which aim at like millions of users. Can't really do that on other blockchains.
That's interesting. Now I'm looking at the some of the partnerships, and I like to pronounce things properly, but I'm not going to try to pronounce some of these partnerships. But some of the key terms I'm seeing here are land registry and using this project in kind of land registry as a focus. Am I off base there? Is that correct?
A little bit off base, but not completely.
That's okay. I'll take a little bit off base.
I mean, we have been working for some years in the government space and the enterprise space. So we managed to get the project with the Swedish land registry and a consortium of different banks and other companies, as well as other public sector players. And then we got other projects around land registration in India, Australia, Canada, etc. So we've been doing quite a lot of work in that region. But that was actually before we came up with the Chromia ID. So we cannot promise that we'll have land registries on a public blockchain anytime soon.
That would be definitely more of a private blockchain that we'd have that on, correct?
Maybe in the future. There's quite a lot of enterprise applications that are actually suitable for a public blockchain, if only that the public blockchain had the performance characteristics that you would require and sort of the stability of who is behind running the nodes, etc. So I think that we can solve some issues, and we'll also have some enterprise applications on the blockchain.
So what would you see? And again, this is not necessarily what Chromia is doing, but what as for being people that have been in blockchain for a very long time in terms of blockchain years, what do you see as some of the things that blockchain can solve? Like, we're talking land registry. In the past, people have talked about medical records on the blockchain. People have talked about, buying art or buying pieces of buildings or all sorts of different things like this. What do you see as, again, just having that knowledge and that background in blockchain, what do you see as some of the kind of the if you had, 2 or 3 items to say, what, I wish this was on blockchain. This would solve a lot of the world's issues, or this would solve a lot of issues for a particular country. What do you see as items that blockchain should be focusing on?
Well, I think it's hard to pick just like few, because in theory, like, use of blockchain is a trade-off. So you always had good parts, which is like transparency, and bad parts. You also like need to handle things which like people accidentally losing their key. So it's not really easy to handle this with blockchain. Like it depends on a lot of infrastructure. So you can say we just move something to blockchain, it becomes better. It might become actually worse. But so it's a long process. But I think many kind of financial applications will be better off on the blockchain because it gives people access from different parts and removes intermediaries. And then there is like things which are related to transparency, for example, where there could be possible a fraud or some other issue, and just putting this data on the blockchain, making it public and signing it and so on, will make it much easier for bad actors to corrupt this data, withhold it, or change, say, it actually was different, you misremember it. So if it's already available, so it can be many industries, including like land registries as well. So I guess it's more relevant to say developing countries which have a lot of fraud or like very bad infrastructure. So they could just digitize it, but maybe it's very hard for them to digitize it properly. So they can jump straight to the blockchain and make it public just to reduce this fraud and maybe some kind of mishandling of data. So maybe, like actually in Sweden, a lot of data is public, and it seems to be doing quite well. So a lot of public data can be on the blockchain. So it can be, in many cases, can be just incremental change. It does something positive, but maybe like not groundbreaking.
Interesting. So I am actually thinking that my wife might be a bad actor and my brain might be a public blockchain, because I feel like she can go in and reorganize my blocks to suit her memory. If I forget to do something and she's like, no, remember I told you to do this? And I feel like I'm going to start calling her a bad actor now. Do you guys have to deal with that at all? Are your memories all intact? You guys all seem like very intelligent people.
I timestamp all my conversations with my wife on the Bitcoin blockchain.
I think that's what I need to do. I need an immutable ledger of my actions and thoughts, because my wife definitely messes with me, I think, a little too much. So I do have another question about Chromia. I've been reading about REL, RELL. What is that exactly? To kind of somebody that might be a little newer to the kind of the technical aspects of blockchain. What is REL?
Okay, so it's a relational programming language. So it's basically what Henrik spoke about. Relational databases and SQL. REL actually realizes it. So like SQL is very popular language, but it's very dated and it has many bad aspects, and also it doesn't allow you to program some things at all. So we had to develop our own language. We really considered using using existing language, but in the end we decided we need to do it from scratch. We building a new language. So we incorporated some good parts from SQL, like making it much more conscious, much more basically organized, type safe, and added this common programming structures, making familiar like some popular languages like Kotlin or TypeScript. It's actually very similar. And we found that many people can pick it up very quickly, and since it's very kind of tuned for this kind of programming, it dramatically reduces number of errors, a number of boilerplate code people have to write. Like if you have to write a lot of code, it's much more likely to have an error. With REL, you have to write much less code because it exactly captures intent of a programmer.
Interesting. That is, I didn't know that. That's pretty impressive. So I have another question here for you. In regards to the again, the blockchain space, we hear the term interoperability a lot. You tend to hear certain buzzwords, that one being one of them. Is that a main focus for Chromia? Is that a buzzword that holds no water? How do you see the term interoperability, and how does that kind of affect how the project is run?
Well, I think like interoperability is very nice, but it's very expensive to have, because to make something completely interoperable, you need like reduce it to lowest common denominator, which is not great. So when you have so many new projects trying to have new features, you really can't have a lot of interoperability, because then you slow down them all and make them basically synchronize and so on. But so I think it's like a luxury right now, and maybe not really needed, because maybe you don't need to interoperate with some project which is not great. But in principle, it's a nice thing where you actually have some basically real ability to interact, and we have like there are also a lot of many kinds of you can be interoperable with many things. So with Chromia, we can, for example, you can allow people to use directly SQL reads, so it's much easier to integrate post-chain or Chromia with some more traditional application architecture using just direct SQL queries, a very familiar query model and so on. But yeah, in general, it's kind of very kind of complex question. It's kind of trade-off whether you want to be interoperable or if you want something to be something unique and do it your way.
Interesting.
And okay, add a little bit that we often get the question like, how can you either compete with Solidity, or how can you assure that you're compatible with Solidity? But if you look at the bigger picture outside of our industry, Solidity isn't the biggest programming language on the planet. For example, Stack Overflow every year makes a survey of different technologies used, and SQL is the third tool after HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. SQL comes first, ahead of Java. Solidity is not even on the top 20 list.
Really?
So we're making something that is actually compatible with a lot of normal development for normal developers in the normal world and normal tools. So
you're basically trying to bring Chromia into more of the normal realm, as opposed to just specifically the blockchain realm.
Absolutely, should be almost as easy to make a blockchain application as a normal application.
Exactly.
I think that's one of the reasons that we are not seeing maybe a lot of these visionary decentralized applications as we would hope. That it's quite hard.
Are we saying CryptoKitties is not a life-changing app that we can use?
It changed a little bit on our market, so it's
sure
cool,
did.
but it has its weaknesses.
Well, I think it exposed the weaknesses of some of the projects to in capacity.
So that's something that we are actually quite close to us. It's gaming, but maybe that's another question that you can post later. Yeah.
Actually, I'll follow it up with that. Is there any gamification that's going to be combined on the Chromia project?
Now, but we can take a look at the CryptoKitties. It's nice that you have your NFT, you have your kittens on the blockchain. That's good. But what happened if they close down the server?
Right.
It means that you have a binary code on a blockchain. So that's not the full potential of blockchain gaming. And that's where something that we want to address with Chromia, that we can make public applications where the complete game logic is on a blockchain. And basically, most of the game is on a blockchain. And
really?
Ideally, you should have open source, so you also have a client that you can play. But try to address those things. So we have a strategy for gaming. We actually launched a game studio, Chromia Studios, to do some games of our own as examples, etc. So
that's fantastic. So I do. So you were an IEO on KuCoin, correct? Am I getting that correct?
Yes, we did this summer.
And how was that as an experience for the company? Was that an overall positive experience? Obviously, with ICOs in the past, there's a lot of buzz around IEOs now. And how was the experience for the project as a whole?
Well, before that, we did a private pre-sale to more of a professional investors. I see. With the analogy of basically angel investment in a project. You don't. I mean, if it's an early project, you don't go to the stock market and have everyone in the whole world invest into your company, because it's a highly risky proposition.
It is very.
It can fail, etc. So we wanted to have more professional and sort of that angel funding model. Basically, reach out to for the pre-sale where we handpicked investors. But we got a lot of criticism for that. Why don't you reach out to a broader audience, etc. So that's why we decided we could do an IEO of a smaller amount and get some more of the community into the token.
Well, there was also some, we'll call it quote unquote FUD surrounding, obviously KuCoin has Ian Bellina as a representative or advisor. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but at one point he was. I believe he's an investor in Chromia as well. But there was some FUD surrounding that. Do you want to elaborate? I'm sure we'll get feedback from our listeners if we don't talk about it. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, Ian Bellina isn't a special advisor to us. He's an investor. That's something that we've been open with. He was an investor on the same terms as the other investors.
Right. So no different than if I was an investor or anybody else was an investor, that there was no additional additional benefit for Ian Bellina. Is that what we're saying?
No, and he has. It's not only he has a team, and they could actually spend some time to evaluate the technologies, etc. So not every investor did that. So I think that's. Yeah.
To defend Ian a little bit too, he was very good as far as his research team prior to the debacle of his phone and passwords and whatnot on I forget what the app was now, I can't think of it, but I remember he did a lot of good research in my opinion and was fairly successful during the ICO phase. Or the pandemonium that was the ICO phase, but obviously got a lot of negative attention with his phone hack and all that fun stuff. But no, it doesn't shock me that you say his team was out there doing research, because prior to that, that's what he was really well known for. It was doing fairly good research, probably better than most people that participate in ICOs and IEOs and buying tokens. So it doesn't shock me to hear that the team was there doing some good research.
It's a crazy industry, so much bad mouthing and rumors being spread and sort of malicious things about various things. People are upset that they didn't win the lottery on the KuCoin, and they are upset
right,
on
exactly.
They're upset that they didn't get handpicked to be investors.
I think they're
upset. So they're upset and spread various things. But yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people. Got upset buying a $20,000 Bitcoin and then seeing it go down to 3,500 or whatever it went down to, and that does create a system of angry computer people, which can spread a lot of venom throughout the whole space, right? So having people bad mouthing, a lot of rumors, a lot of just angry people, and because again, like you said, they didn't win the lottery in 2017, or they missed the boat in 2018, or whatever they did. So I'm glad to hear that there was research done on Ian's side, and again, at the end of the day, he's just a regular investor like anybody else could have been. That is all the questions I have in regards to the project. Is there anything I missed that you would like to talk about as far as maybe particular highlights to the project?
I think that Alex wrote a very, very nice blog post called Towards Publicly Hosted Applications that we have on our Chromia blog. So more about the vision, how this can solve issues around the project with free and open source software, that it's only working on your computer rather than sort of in a cloud situation, and the power shift from monopolies to other ways of funding, and from big companies to actually user participation. So that's something that you could read, or we can discuss whatever you.
I was going to say I was going to post that blog to the show notes. So when people if people want to give that a read, they'll be able to do so right from the downloading space that they're using, whether it's Apple or Spotify, or if they're listening on YouTube, they'll be able to read that from there. But I would like to get into some fun things now, because as I mentioned to you before the show started, Henrik, a lot of the shows in blockchain, a lot of the podcasts, a lot of the YouTubers, this can get pretty heavy. This is a lot of heavy material that we're going over, and we like to keep things light here at REKT Podcast. So we've gotten to know the project, we've asked the questions, we want to get to know Alex and Henrik a little bit more. So we're going to go into some rapid fire questions. All right, I'm going to start with Henrik. Henrik, growing up, what was your favorite band?
The Smiths and Sonic Youth and Lizzy. 3 words. Yeah. These
are very good choices. I'm a huge Smiths fan. Thin Lizzy fan as well. So great choices. How about yourself, Alex? What did you listen to growing up?
I was mostly like metal music, like Black Sabbath, Burzum, Death, things like that.
I'm gonna ask you what your favorite breakfast food is, guys. We'll start with Henrik. What's your favorite breakfast food?
I mean, the English breakfast is such a marvelous invention. So English cooking is so underrated, and a great English breakfast that's fantastic.
Are we talking about bangers and mash? Is this?
Bacon, egg, of course.
Yes.
Toast that's done sort of on the frying pan. Tomato made in the oven. So
Okay.
yeah.
Alex, how about yourself?
Yeah, I usually don't eat breakfast actually, but or like just have coffee or something like that, cookie. But when I do, I'm up for English breakfast as well, or I just make like fried eggs, like my own recipe basically. Also pretty decent.
Interesting. So what's a traditional, a traditional Swedish breakfast? Is that a thing? I don't know Swedish food that much, unfortunately. What would that consist of?
Yeah, something called something yogurt-like that we have. Another kind of yogurt. So that's a lot of that stuff.
Okay. But very very basic. Is that what we're saying? Like nothing too elaborate, like bacon and eggs and pancakes and French toast.
No sweet things. Just
No.
bread, yogurt,
bread and yogurt and juice, maybe.
So, not juice. That sounds Swedish. We don't have any oranges or anything like that.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next question I have on my list. What is your favorite or your if you're using iPhone or Android, what's your favorite app that you use currently? Alex, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. I just play music. I don't really use many apps or set browsing Twitter, for example. Yeah, I'm maybe a Twitter addict right now, so probably Twitter. But yeah, I also play some mobile games and things like that.
Anything you'd recommend right now?
Yeah, I play very simple stuff like Plants vs Zombies and My Singing. Actually, it's my daughter plays My Singing Monsters. I don't play it myself, but I like it a lot. It's very very cool game.
I do have a recommendation for one because I've been playing one for the last 2 weeks that is very addictive, very simple, called Rover Craft. So if you haven't tried this yet and you're looking for something simple, I don't like very complex games on my phone or my iPad. I like something I can play for a couple of minutes and then put it away and then pick it up. Rover Craft. You basically have to progressively build a better moon rover and get across different planets. It's quite good, so highly recommend. Henrik, what is your favorite app you're currently using?
I'm such a boring person, so it's like a business app, Evernote, and it's old as well. I do note taking. I use the company's Zulip chat. That's what I do on the apps. No games or anything like that.
No games, just Evernote, taking notes consistently. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Working hard, man.
Well, somebody's got to be working hard, so I appreciate that it's not me. So I have a question for you. I asked this question for a lot of the guests, but I'm not sure if this particular holiday is celebrated very much in your area in Sweden. Is Halloween a big day in Sweden?
About 10 years ago, we started to import Halloween. We import everything from the US, including now Halloween. But it's really nice. I have 2 children, and it's nice.
So as a child, you never had the experience of trick or treating.
No.
Oh my goodness!
Didn't exist. No.
Normally, what I ask is, what was your favorite Halloween costume as a child? But in this sense, I will ask, if you were a child, what would be your Halloween costume you would go as this year? So, say you were 10 years old, what would you choose as your Halloween costume?
I had this idea that I have a car on the outside that we could sort of make the lights go on in the night based on someone approaching our house, and we could have someone in the car, so like scare the shit out of people. So that'd be something to do for Halloween. So I have my secret plans. Yeah.
Interesting. I like the fact that you went with scaring the shit out of somebody, because that's where I like to do most of the time. I do a lot of decorations around the house. We have a lot of kids in our neighborhood, and I have 2 daughters. I have loved scaring them. So yes, scaring kids on Halloween is one of my favorite things to do. So I'm glad to see that you've taken that. Alex, what about yourself? If you were 10 years old and you were going trick-or-treating for the first time, what would you be choosing as a costume?
Well, I haven't thought about it much, but maybe like some black metalist would be a good costume. Actually, I actually did something like that, not Halloween, but just for regular like playing around. So like we were really into black metal, so I could see myself doing like ritual. It's called actually ritual corpse paint. When they white face with black stripes, things like that.
That's fantastic. It's funny. I don't work. I have the podcast, but I actually, I do work a quote unquote regular job. And in my company, one of my coworkers had asked me to come see his concert. He was in a band. So I said, yeah, absolutely. He knew I loved music. And so, I make my way over to go see him, and he was in a what I call a metal band. I understand there are many subgenres in metal, but we're in the business world. We're in account management, and we're always wearing suits and that kind of thing. And he comes out with what I assume would be Alex's Halloween costume, with the face paint, or which I think it was face paint, but yeah, he looked like a completely different person, and he's a lead guitar player in a metal band. I think it was called I might be getting this wrong. Is shoegaze a type of metal, Alex?
Well, I don't know, but yes, there is shoegaze type of metal. It's not really metal, but something kind of like that.
That's more of a melodic metal,
correct?
Is that?
Well,
is
no,
that
it's actually more like textures, and it's like making some cool sound. It's like more like it's like a wall of sound, but it's beautiful, something like that.
I see. No, so I was introduced to this whole world of metal and all of the different genres within it. So I'm going to ask one last question here, kind of keeping in the Halloween theme a little bit. But what would be your weapon of choice? Obviously zombies are a very popular thing right now, and the zombie apocalypse is talked about by everybody. So if Alex, if the zombie apocalypse happened today, what would be your one weapon of choice? If you had one weapon to choose to survive the zombie apocalypse, what would that be?
Well, it's probably not effective at all, but a mace, something like heavy. Just, this is something I can operate. I know it's not very hard, but I'm not sure if it's effective against zombies, but at least you can have some fun with it.
Great answer. What about yourself, Henrik?
I do own a chainsaw, and I can use it, so yeah, I would probably use that one. Yeah.
And well, that's. I mean, you only have a certain amount of fuel in the chainsaw. Hopefully, we can get some sort of gas can to carry with you to refill.
Yeah, I have a great axe as well. So pick the book.
Good. That's what you need. You need something that's renewable as far as energy goes. All right, that does it for the rapid fire questions, gentlemen. I just want to give you a moment here to discuss anything. If you wanna point people in the right direction as far as the websites, as far as social media accounts, the floor is yours. Where can people find you?
I guess that everything is linked from Chromia.com, CHROMIA.com. So we have links to Telegram channels, we have a link to our new game company, Chromia Studios, and various as well, Twitter as well, of course.
Where are you the most active? Is it on Telegram? Is it on Twitter? Do we have a Discord site?
Well, I'm on Twitter, so if somebody wants to contact me personally for any reason, I'm Killer Storm. on Twitter, and also we have developer chat on Telegram where we have like rather calm discussions. So if any developers want to talk about Chromia, I guess they can go to developer chat. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, on Telegram there's more discussion, but it's quite noisy. Yeah, no Discord so far, but something we consider.
No, that's perfect. I actually just started using Discord a little bit more in the last month or two. I was a little hesitant to use it just because it seemed it seemed like a lot of work. But the more I use it, the more I like it. So Discord always seems to be the way to go these days. I'm a big Telegram person myself as well. So we will link all of those socials. I will link the site in there as well. But that does it for the show. Thank you for listening. And until next time, don't get wrecked. And that is financial advice.